Hey friends, we're back. We're talking about Solomon today. Today is the last of Solomon. Actually, his he makes a big splash, but he's a lot less chapters than David. And I think we'll see as we move forward here that the other kings have oftentimes substantially less time given to them. But Solomon, of course, is an important figure. Um, a lot of important things going on, a lot of good about Solomon. We're actually going to see some very bad about Solomon, and we'll see that he leaves the situation in not great shape. So let's jump in. There is a lot that we could talk about, probably should talk about. Chapter 8, which is actually in yesterday's official reading, but I want to start there today. Is when the ark, so the temple, the first physical permanent structure, is built there by Solomon. He also builds his palace, and so now they're bringing the Ark of the Covenant up and into the temple. And chapter 8 is mostly filled with Solomon's prayer or address to God before the people. So it's really interesting the things that he includes here, the kind of theological things that are important in this particular text of scripture. And if you haven't, definitely spend some time just kind of combing through his prayers, his addresses about his father David wanting to build the temple, God saying not for you, and he's thanking God for bringing this to fruition. So just take a glimpse at this. So in chapter 8, First Kings, of course, verse 23, Solomon gathers before the whole assembly. He is on his knees, but his hands are lifted high. Interesting prayer posture here. It says, Lord, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven and on earth below. You keep your covenant of love with your servants who continue wholeheartedly in your way. We see this theme from Deuteronomy, etc., coming up again and again. So God's covenant towards his people, the desired response or the people's part is to continue wholeheartedly in God's ways. So today is a fulfillment. We have a reminder of God's word to David that we saw back in 2 Samuel chapter 7. Very, very important. I noted that covenant promise. You will never fail to have a successor to sit before you on the throne of Israel. If only your descendants are careful in all they do to walk before me faithfully as they have done. So when we fast forward to the end of today's reading, we'll find that Solomon ceases to be faithful later in his life. And so after this, the kingdom is going to be divided. So I'll make sure I get to that here today as well. It's interesting, verse 27. The heavens, even the highest heavens, cannot contain you. How much less this temple that I have built, right? So the tabernacle and the temple are a significant presence point of God here on earth. But Solomon is recognizing here that this doesn't continue. We talk about putting God in a box sometimes, right, as a common expression. Solomon's acknowledging here that God's not contained in this temple. It's significant, but it's not all that, of course, God is. God is everywhere on heaven and earth. And so he goes through this series of things and asking God to, when this goes wrong and people pray to you towards this place, forgive them, kind of thing. And he goes through different things with that, foreshadowing exile ultimately in return, lack of rain, various different things. He even mentions, again, we saw this a lot more in Torah, but now we see it again here, verse 41 of chapter 8 too, as for the foreigner or alien who's here, same kind of thing with them too when they pray. I like this. Do whatever the foreigner asks of you, so that all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as do your own people Israel, and may know that this house I have built bears your name. So again, way back to Abraham, Abraham and his descendants, God is working with this particular people ultimately in order to bless and reach everybody, right? This will carry way forward into the Great Commission, into the mission of the church. But the aim has always been, I've gone off on this, but it's been a little while now in the past here. God is always focusing here throughout this story on a particular people in order to shape them to become witnesses to the larger people. So election or choosing isn't saying I don't care about them at all. It's saying I'm working with you in order to empower you to ultimately be a witness to others that others may come and see, and that kind of thing. So verse 54, so chapter 8, when Solomon finished all these prayers, supplications to the Lord, he rose before the altar, and he blesses the whole assembly. So this is a little bit different than the prayer. This is the blessing towards the people. Praise be to God. No word has ever failed. May he never leave us or forsake us, and these kind of things. So there's a bunch of sacrifices. And then in chapter 9, God addresses Solomon. So Solomon's been praying and blessing and these kind of things. When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and his palace, the Lord appeared to him and said, verse 3, chapter 9, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me today. I have consecrated the temple, right, set apart this thing special, by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. So that one paragraph is what he says about the temple. Then he turns God's address here, turns his attention to Solomon in verse 4. As for you, if you walk before me faithfully with integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I commanded and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever, as I promised your father David. Verse 6, but if you or your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given before you, and what's the number one way to do that really badly? And go off and serve other gods and worship them, right? That should be no surprise to us by now on this journey. We've seen that idolatry is the biggest thing. That's the then I will cut off from Israel before the land I've given them, and I will and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Verse 8, this temple will become a heap of rubble. So God's saying, yeah, this temple's great, but if you don't follow me, it doesn't matter. If you people don't follow me, I don't care about this temple. It's going to get destroyed because it's not about the temple. It's about God dwelling among the people to have them shaped in a particular way to follow him. And if they become uninterested in following him, it doesn't matter. This is going to be a big thing because people are going to be really focused on this temple going forward as their worship and their ethics gets worse and worse and worse. And so we're going to see this become a continual theme that happens again and again and again. So, okay, Solomon's other activities. Chapter 10, the Queen of Sheba, I can't get the word out today. The queen comes and visits Solomon, and she's super impressed by him, and all this wealth comes, Solomon's splendor. He builds all these things. He has all this gold. He has, everything that anybody could want: wisdom and wealth and women and power and respect and honor and all. He has all these things, but chapter 11. King Solomon, however, okay, this is the caveat. So there's all the good. There's a lot of good about Solomon. We just looked at that. Here's the bad. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women. So, we've seen that loving multiple women here all along presents problems and conflicts and etc. But these are not just many women, many foreign women, which again is not always a problem. Remember, we have Ruth. She's a Moabite, but she comes to worship God. These foreign women did not come to give exclusive allegiance to Yahweh. They brought with them their desire to worship other gods, and that is a huge problem, right? Verse 2, they were from the nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you may not intermarry with them. Why? Because God doesn't like other people? No, because they will surely turn your hearts after other gods. So it's not about ethnicity, it's about worship. That's the challenge here. Verse 3, he had 700 wives of royal birth, 700 wives of royal birth, and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. Again, it's not a woman problem here. It's a worship problem. Solomon made unwise decisions, and we're in the New Testament about being unequally yoked. Well, here you go, right? As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, right? So they kind of wore down on him over time, and the people that you're close with have the most influence over you. And so we see, that this becomes really problematic. So verse 6, Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God as the heart of David, his father, had been. David had issues, but his issues were not related to idolatry. And that's huge. We'll come back to that, I'm sure. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonites, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David, his father, did. He set up places, high places on the hill east of Jerusalem, high place for Chemosh of Moab, Molech. And so basically, all these wives that he married to make alliances or whatever with all these different nations, they brought the worship of their gods in. They did not convert. They still wanted to worship the other gods. And so Solomon not only allowed that to happen, but over time even set up altars around Israel for them, right? Verse 9, the Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared before him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son, yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David, my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. So this is the end of what's called by scholars and biblical studies people the united monarchy, right? Under first Saul, and then particularly with David, all the 12 tribes become united as a nation under Solomon as well. After Solomon, Jeroboam, which we learn about at the end of this chapter, who is not one of Solomon's sons, in verse 26, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he's one of, I have to sneeze. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Jeroboam, son of Nebat, is one of Solomon's officials. That's the subordinate that we just talked about here. he is going to take the 10 northern tribes, and they will kind of henceforth basically be known as Israel. The southern tribe of Judah will become the southern kingdom, northern kingdom of Israel, southern kingdom of Judah. And so this is what's called a divided monarchy. They'll have different kings. The northern kingdom will get wiped out and go into exile first. Won't happen for a while now, and then the southern kingdom second. But all that's to come. So this is the end of the united monarchy, one king, and the beginning of the divided monarchy, where there will be two kings and two nations that are a part of this whole of God's people, the northern tribe of Israel and the southern tribe of Judah. So hopefully that makes some sense. If you have questions about that, let me know. Again, we're tracking big picture here. Hopefully you're understanding some of this as we go along. And so think about what else I want to say as we wrap up chapter 12 to kind of emphasize this. Verse 34, I will not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life. And for the sake of David, my servant, whom I chose, I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give it to the 12. So this promise that God made to David will continue, but it will be in a different fashion because of Solomon's unfaithfulness. So the tribe of Judah will continue on in the line of David, but the 10 tribes in the north will be taken away from him. So we see both God's continuation of the covenant promises as well as the consequences for not being faithful here at this time. So at the end of chapter 11 is Solomon's death. Verse 43, he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, his father. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him as king. So these, the names are very similar. Jeroboam, who's not one of the king's sons. He's an official guy. And Rehoboam, who is Solomon's son. So that's in tomorrow's reading. I don't know if I'm going to be with you tomorrow or not. I have kind of a busy day. Then I'm going away for the weekend. So I will be not back with you until Monday. Maybe tomorrow. Definitely not Friday through Monday. Hope you guys have a great time. Keep on doing the reading. Keep on tracking with it. We see that things go bad with Jeroboam very quickly. He goes up to the north. We go there on our Israel trips to see Tel Dan, where Jeroboam goes and makes golden calf. That's never a good idea. So we'll see how the divided monarchy kind of goes on in these next few days. I'll try to capture the highlights of that when I come back with you next time. All right. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.